Konnichiwa, minasan. Today we're going to be talking about a serious topic. I feel it's very necessary at this point to speak a little bit about World War II. Now, I'm not sure if I can devote an entire blog to this, or maybe it's best for me to say things in bits and pieces. There's still things that come to me, and it's like a puzzle coming back together. But this morning I did have, one of my moments where I woke up and I was just entirely in the moment and crying for a long, long time. I have to speak about it today at least a little bit because I'm not too sure how much I could take with keeping this stuff inside of me. I want to let people know that, I do see that I lived in a past life and I lived in Japan. I don't know all the details and sometimes the pieces come together piecemeal and I have to make sense of things. But a very strong message came from this, and that was this whole time of World War II. There's a lot of strong stuff that came from there. The only way that I can probably try to get rid of the nightmare that's in my head is, as far as I can see, would be to talk about it. And today we're going to get a little bit into that. It's a very mixed time. When somebody goes to remember that type of stuff, I guess you could define it as a post-traumatic stress disorder, but I didn't really see that in this life. But it comes back to me very vividly. I'm going to tell you as much as I can, and if I get to the point that, I don't want to say any more, then okay, I will. When I was in Japan, I was a young man. I enlisted in the army. I was in my early 20s, and my parents were very, very proud of me. It was something that I looked upon as probably the right thing to do. There's a strong sense of loyalty to my country and that I was doing the right thing. This was the time before World War II actually started. So I was very proud to serve my country. Very much a strong Japanese nationalist. I had a girlfriend at the time, and it was shortly thereafter we did get married. So I had a wife. It was very nice to have her in my life. It was such a joy. I think the best memories that I have of that life are the time before World War II. We just did a lot of normal things. We like to walk in gardens. We like to go out and do things once in a while. She was a very beautiful woman, a small woman, very Chinese looking. She looks very much like a Japanese friend of mine named Masumi Kataoka. Very Chinese looking, but still Japanese. When it came for the time of World War II, there was these huge plans going on in the military of probably expanding Japan. And I guess the plan was pretty much Korea and China. There was an effort made in Taiwan too, but mostly Korea and China. An effort was made to cause some disorder and destruction over in Pearl Harbor, and that's pretty much the start of things right there as far as Japan is concerned. That was the nearest threat to the Japanese military. So they did launch a strike on there known as Pearl Harbor. We have a whole day remembering that. It was very terrible thing. I don't think it was very fair to anybody. Nobody saw it coming. But it's the start of what actually happened. There's quite a few American people that died, and it's really a shame that they didn't see it. But you have to remember back then the Japanese military didn't have the high technology that, American military did. Planes did not fly as high for Japanese, the Japanese military. The Americans really did have a stronger hold on things. They could fly their planes higher. Things are much more advanced and much better military equipment at their disposal. So I guess in some sense, the Japanese military did have to fight in a dirty way. The things that I remember that come to me strongest is when I was sent to China, and we were there pretty much to take over. I think in any way when you look at China and you have to take over, it's kind of looked upon as you have to go in there, take a lot of Chinese people prisoner, and then everybody had a scheduled time where there was a certain due process where people had to be killed every day. Now you can ask, why would any regular person want to do such a thing? Why would they do that? A lot of it was just built on the fact that we were just juiced up to think that we were doing this in the name of our country. And we were. I didn't realize that it was something wrong until much, much later. But when you kill a Chinese person and you kill a lot of people, it just doesn't faze you after a while. It's just like one person after another. Some people were buried alive, a lot of people were shot at point blank range, some people were stabbed. Some prisoners of war were also raped and tortured. You can find a lot of things out here on YouTube, and it's very heart-wrenching to look back and see that all of this was true. I guess it's kind of weird looking at it from this perspective, but in a lot of ways, I just want to think that it was a bad nightmare. Some Chinese people would take it very honorably, and they would just take it like a man, I suppose. The best way you could describe it. They just knew that they were gonna die, and they just let go, and that was it. Some people would fight the whole way. Even more so. Some people will be begging not to be killed. But you did it anyway because it was part of your job, and some of the prisoners, if they caused a lot of trouble or any problems, then those people would be killed. They'd be set to a certain time, not too far thereafter, to be killed. It really was an ugly thing. I think when you go into something as a military person, you just do what you do. And that's it, because you're trained to do that. You're trained to be a warrior. You're trained to be a killing machine, maybe, in some sense or another. I think it's a much more difficult thing to take when you actually see somebody in front of you that you're going to kill. You may not know them, and it really doesn't matter. I mean, even if you have personal things against them, they're going to die either way. It was not a very good time. A lot of Korean women were pretty much love slaves. Some of them had their uteruses removed. Some of them that are still around today, they have scars to show it. Very terrible thing, almost like the womanhood is taken away from them. I don't have any angst against the people of China. I mean, I know I don't see everything eye to eye, and I do have my beef with them, but I hold nothing against them today. But a lot of them still remember. And sometimes that's difficult. Biggest thing that I remember from this that just made me fully realize that what I did was wrong was when I went back home. Now back then, radios were really big, and that's pretty much how you got your information. I heard about the bombings in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Hiroshima got my attention because that's where I lived. I remember the day that I actually touched down to go see Hiroshima. There was nothing left. No home to go to. Friends, family, relatives, even someone very special to me. My wife. Gone. I think when you get to that point of realizing what you actually did had an effect on the people at home, to kind of take everything away, it doesn't take long to realize that no matter what side you're on in a war, nobody wins and everybody loses. It was terrible. And a lot of the people that did survive, I consider them to probably not be fortunate ones if they were far enough away from the bomb and far away from the blast to witness it and come apart from it with just, maybe glass that had to be taken out of them, impaled with glass and whatnot. It's just, maybe that was a good thing. I think if you died, maybe that was great. Because then you didn't have to see what happened after. Some of the people that came away from it. They don't look like human beings anymore. They look like monsters. I spent a good part of my life feeling so bad for this. And I think that, even to this day, there's really not much I can do but to say I'm sorry. I can't go and bring back the loved ones, people in China that I killed. I can't bring back my wife. I can't bring back anybody. It's a very terrible thing when you know that your military people are so desperate and destitute, even though they don't have the technology, that they're willing to send soldiers, some of them that I knew, on kamikaze missions, knowing that they wouldn't come back. It was a terrible ordeal. I think a lot of times for the rest of my life I was very sad. I was very sorry. Very, very sorry. I mean, when people look and speak about the Japanese people, Chinese people and Koreans especially, would see us as monsters. It really hits me like a ton of bricks. Somebody could look at me and I'd have to ask them, what do you see? What do you see? I hope that they could say that they could see me as a human being that did bad things. A monster is a very strong word, but I think sometimes the aftermath of such a thing, it just warrants that type of thing to say. I leave myself open to whatever anybody has to say. I don't want to see the world in a time and place like again. If we get to have another war, that's a terrible thing. I think that maybe one lifetime is better enough for all this pain, but I never expected to see another. If I can try to pry myself away from this, okay. But I know that talking about it is a much better thing for me to do. And if I can set myself free, which is all that I plan to do, but I think my job will be done. Well, that's all I can say about World War II for now. My time is almost up, and I think that I'll probably feel better from this.